your book, the possibility that our universe was created in the laboratory of an advanced technological civilization provides humanity both of the possibilities that we have sort of a secular explanation and also a potentially one that's consistent with a religious notion. You talk about our universe has a flat geometry with a zero net energy, and an advanced civilization could have developed some technology to create sort of a baby universe, you call it. Is it possible? I mean, I know there's a lot of presuppositions, that we'd have to sort of also be comfortable with. But what is the possibility, and how does that work that we may have been created by another species that has long pre-existed ours?
Well, it's a very simple idea. By the way, I'm simple-minded, despite of what you might think. I was born on a farm in Israel, and I only say what I understand. Okay, and so it's a very simple idea. There is nothing fancy about it. Basically, um, as of now, we have two pillars of modern physics. One is called quantum mechanics, and that's responsible for all the electronic instruments that you're using, that we are communicating through. We understand how to make those as a result of understanding quantum mechanics. Okay, and that deals with elementary particles primarily. Then there is the theory of gravity that Albert Einstein came up with 110 years ago. It's called the general theory of relativity, where gravity is not a force, it's actually the curvature of space and time. Okay. The problem is unifying these two pillars, bringing them together to a single theory that includes both in a consistent way. And Albert Einstein dedicated the last part of his life to this mission and couldn't do it. And there are people that dedicated the last 50 years of theoretical physics to this mission in the context of mostly string theory, and they don't make any predictions. But I'm saying, their theory is not unique. It's not complete enough to make any forecasts about experimental data. So, but anyway, I'm saying, suppose you have a higher level of intelligence. Maybe it's a problem of the human brain. Maybe it's a problem of lack of data. We don't have enough data. But imagine a civilization that had more than 1 century of science and technology since they discovered quantum mechanics. So they had plenty of time, maybe thousands of years, millions of years, maybe even billions of years. And they have developed a theory that unifies quantum mechanics and gravity. It's called quantum gravity. What does it mean? Okay, so according to Einstein's theory of gravity, if we go back in time, we end up in the Big Bang. We see the universe is expanding, and you just reverse the movie backwards, and you get a denser and hotter state of everything until you reach an infinite density. And at that point, Einstein's theory breaks down. It cannot handle an extremely high curvature of space-time. And of course, it's because it doesn't have quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics is important at very high densities of matter. Quantum effects start to play a role. And so suppose we had a theory of quantum gravity, then we would be able to figure out to replace the singularity of the Big Bang that exists in Einstein's gravity with an actual scenario for how the universe started. What was there before the Big Bang? Okay, that's it. So we could go beyond the Big Bang back in time and figure out what were the initial conditions that led to the Big Bang. What was there before the Big Bang? Now, if you think about it, it's just like a recipe for a cake. Because if you have the ingredients and you know how to put them together and how much heat to apply to them at any given time, you can make a cake, bake a cake. And if we had a theory of quantum gravity, we would know how to make a baby universe. You just put the ingredients at the right order with enough heat, and you end up with a universe. Now, of course, if you go back to the Old Testament, in the first chapter of the Bible, it says that God did just that. God created the universe. What I'm saying is, once we have a theory of quantum gravity, anyone that has it can apply for the job of God. Why? Because in principle, you have a recipe for that cake. Okay. Now, the question of whether you can make the cake or not depends on what oven you have. If you don't have the oven to bake the cake, you can't make it. And that means in the context of the universe, you need to create a very high density of matter and radiation and somehow create the conditions that led to the Big Bang. Maybe we can't do it engineering wise, but we will have the recipe. If anyone is asking for job applications, we would be able to apply. We would say, because the requirement would be, if you want to apply for the job of God, you should be able to create a universe. And if we have the recipe, we know how to do it. So now my point is as follows. If there are civilizations that developed to the level of being able to have that recipe and maybe even realize it in the laboratory, they can create a baby universe, then you can have universes continuing as babies inside, just like humans, that, the babies become adults and give birth to new babies. Okay. So within our universe, there would be aliens that would be able to create baby universes. And inside those baby universes, presumably if the conditions are right, you will have scientists that will eventually figure out how to make additional baby universes. So that's sort of a way to resolve the Big Bang singularity and imagine that this sequence continued forever.
I